And good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With former Wausau West High School head football coach Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up tonight, our coach guest at 6:20 will be the successor to Jason Foster as Wausau West football coach. 7-1 Warriors and Coach Matt Johnson as Wausau West gets set for a big one at DC Everest on Friday night. So we'll talk to Coach Johnson about his team, his season, the game against Everest, the upcoming playoffs, and more coming up at 6:20. And then at 7:05, we're going to go a little bit different here tonight. We'll have a pair of student-athlete guests, both from girls volleyball. From DC Everest, Lindsay Truitt, and Newman Catholic's Paige Gould. They will tell us about Thursday's special Volley for Our Neighbors match between the Evergreens and the Cardinals. It's a very special event going on at DC Everest. And basically, they're just looking for donations. They will not be using the goal fan, which is normally how DC Everest sells tickets. Instead, they'll be asking for cash donations at the gates of at least $2, and all proceeds from the event will go to support the Neighbors Place, including concession stand sales, raffle baskets, and T-shirts. So that's a special event tomorrow night. Plus, both DC Everest and Newman Catholic are doing very well on the volleyball court this year. In fact, DC Everest clinched at least a share of the Wisconsin Valley Conference Championship last night with a win over Wisconsin Rapids, and Newman Catholic is second in the Merowith South. So we'll talk to Lindsay Truitt of DC Everest and Paige Gould of Newman Catholic coming up at 7:05. Our student-athlete guest tonight on the Big High School Sports Show. And Jason Foster, are you as amazed as I am that we are to the final week of the regular season?
Yeah, it's wild. Time flies.
It
It's been interesting. Like they start football August 1st again this last year, and those first couple of weeks seemed like they take forever to get to the scrimmage. But once you get in that weekly routine, it flies by. I was actually going through in my head today who all of our coach and player guests have been throughout the year. It's quite a list.
Absolutely. Well, let's go into the action last week. And starting with the Valley Football Association, it was a battle for second place in the conference. Wausau West traveled to Hortonville. It was the homecoming night for Hortonville. Huge crowd on hand, a lot of energy, but Wausau West went into Hortonville and won by a score of 14-6. That improves the Warriors to 7-1 overall, 5-1 in the VFA. Hortonville saw their 4-game win streak snap. They're now 5-3 overall, 4-2 in the conference. And the Warriors, playing without Ray Reinick, had a couple of good performances in the backfield. Jackson Nago had 16 carries, 116 yards, and a 63-yard touchdown run that gave the Warriors the lead in the second quarter. And then Jaden Durr added 18 rushes, 64 yards, and also had a touchdown. West had a 307 to 213 edge in yards. A solid effort for Wausau West, and again, missing a couple of significant players, yet the Warriors able to go into a very tough environment and earn a really big win.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best football games I've watched this year. Very competitive, went both ways. Two really good defenses playing, and it was great to see those other kids step up. With West being without a couple of their stars right now, with Bryce Jaworski and Ray Reinick being down, so it's great to see Jackson and Jaden step up. And the other thing that was noticeable offensively, I thought, was their use of the short passing game to kind of supplement what they lost in running the ball with Ray. So there's a nice win.
And DC Everest also victorious heading into their matchup with West on Friday. The Evergreens defeated Wausau East at Tom Field 28-0. Everest is now 6-2 overall, 4-2 in the conference. Wausau East 2-6 overall, 1-5 in the league. Quarterback Logan George was 12 of 20, 187 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Reese Stoll had 25 rushes, 119 yards for the Evergreens. Pearson McDonald, 4 catches, 82 yards, and a score. Big edge offensively for Everest, 369 yards for them, 133 for the Lumberjacks. But Everest still right there. Obviously, they're still trying to fight for perhaps a home field advantage game in the postseason playoffs.
Yeah, kudos to Spash. Obviously, we'll talk about them in a second for being for sure the driver's seat for a conference championship. But when you look at West, Everest, Hortonville, Spash, I mean, this had the makings of being a 4-way tie for first place in the conference as opposed to 2 and 3 the last couple of years. But yeah, I think this win for Everest and where they're at puts us in a really good spot for Friday night for a great football game.
Stevens Point took another major step towards a solo conference championship. Stevens Point now 6-0 in the conference, 7-1 overall, winning in Marshfield last Friday 21-0. Tigers dropped to 3-5. Overall, 3-3 in the league. Braylon Smola, 27 carries, 129 yards, all 3 touchdowns for Spash. Grant Shodanam was 10 of 13, 129 yards and an interception. Braden Anderson, 23 rushes, 84 yards for Marshfield. Marshfield could not get anything going passing-wise. As a team, they were 1 of 10 passing for just 7 yards and an interception and just 122 yards of total offense. So obviously for Stevens Point, good rush game, efficient pass game, and outstanding defense. A pretty good combination to get a win on the road.
Yeah, good recipe to win on the road, good recipe to win in the playoffs. You're going to average over 4 yards of carry rushing the ball and over 10 yards passing the ball. That's kind of been their MO, that 100-plus yard rushing, 100-plus yard passing, good balanced attack, and really solid defense. Marshfield's obviously struggled to score points this year, but getting a shutout on the road in hostile territory, that's a good rivalry game historically, so nice win for Spash.
Wisconsin Rapids finally got that first win. They've been knocking on the door, really competitive, but just not able to finish, and they did finish at Appleton West 31-0. 1-7, 1-5 in the conference for Rapids. Appleton West remains winless. Cohen Lehman had 14 carries, 104 yards for Rapids. Rapids as a team, 290 yards on the ground on 47 attempts, and the defense was solid as well. And Wisconsin Rapids has had really good defense all season long, and they held Appleton West to just 111 yards in the game. Again, Wisconsin Rapids, you look at them, they're 1-7, 1-5 in the conference, and yet they're narrowly missing the playoffs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think this is one of those seasons where Coach Biolo and the rest of the coaching staff will, at their banquet, they'll have a lot of talk about how this was the season that maybe could have been, at least from a making the playoff standpoint, that they were just short in a few games and the ball didn't bounce their ways. And it took them a while to kind of figure out who they were on offense after being really solid for the last few years. So yeah, good for them to get on the board. And quite honestly, Appleton West only giving up 31 points. I mean, they've actually shown a little bit of life in the last few weeks here. Maybe are able to kind of finish off this week. Obviously, a tough game against Spash coming up. But if they can finish this, and then they've done something as well, too. They made it through all 9 games without canceling, and they can build moving forward.
I'm going to say that, and I think that's a really good point, and I think we have to underline that we do see a lot of teams that, for one reason or another, decide either to take a week off because it'll be a little too tough. We want to make sure that we get through it healthy, or shut down the season early. You have to give credit to a program that has taking it on the chin, big losses. They've given up 50, 60, even 70 points in recent games. Young players, but yet they have shown up every week. They're trying to grow, build a foundation, and I imagine some of the lessons that those kids are taking, it's not easy. I mean, that's, as a high school kid, you know it. It's not easy to go back to school after you lose 71-6 like they did a few weeks ago to Marshfield. But yet they are continuing to go out there, perform, and finishing the job. And I think, again, we see too many of these teams that don't do that. And again, there are circumstances behind that. But when you do see Appleton West, who takes it on the chin every week, I think they deserve a pat on the back for doing that. And hopefully it's going to lead to building a foundation where that program is stronger in the future.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of what Rapids will talk about at the end of the year, and what you're always looking for is that level of compete. Some years you have the athletes, some years you don't. Some years you have multiple years of a strong weight room program that shows itself on the field. And where they're at right now, they need to have it's a mental thing and a mindset thing. And what you're looking week in and week out is for those small victories, but also just to make sure they're showing up every day in practice and on Friday nights and competing. And I think they're able to say that. One thing I was impressed when they were over here in the West game too is, I don't know if it's the right thing to call it or not, but it's that loser's limp. When you take a tough hit and something hurts or whatever, it's really easy to lay on the ground and get the trainer to come out there and everyone cheers for you. And then all of a sudden that goes from 2 times a game to 2 times a half to 2 times a quarter, and there's more guys on crutches on the sideline than there are playing. And I really didn't notice any of that when they were over here. So yeah, good for them. They're competing, and hopefully they'll be on the right track next year.
Great Northern Conference. We talked about this one quite a bit last week. The battle for the championship in all likelihood between Mosinee and Medford, and it turned into a defensive struggle. Mosinee able to knock off Medford 14-0 for the Indians. A 43-yard touchdown run by Keegan Jershele in the second quarter, and then a 71-yard touchdown pass to Brady Loken in the third quarter. That was one of only 2 2 completed passes. You don't see that very often with Mosinee. They are a team that's been known over the years to be able to move the ball through the air. Mosinee, outside those 2 big plays, did not get a whole bunch going offensively, but the defense was outstanding. And looking at Medford's offensive numbers in that game, number one, they're known for their run game. Medford was held to just 120 yards on 46 attempts on the ground for 2.6 yards per carry. And Medford quarterbacks combined for 10 of 23 for 120 yards. But the big number is 23 attempts, 6 interceptions. So obviously the Mosinee defense, which has allowed only 3 points all season long in Great Northern Conference play, definitely the reason behind that big win on the road last Friday.
Yeah, we talked about it last week with Coach Stoffel that their offense gets a lot of attention. Talk to us about your defense, and he did exactly that. And I think the one thing Mosinee takes away from this game is that we can win in other ways, right? I mean, They only complete 2 passes. What they have is definitely, they have a good offense, obviously, but what they really have is a nice, solid defense and some really good athletes who are capable of big plays, and that gives you the ability to win every single night.
Also in the GNC, big win for Antigo. 3rd conference win in all likelihood, not guarantee, but in all likelihood, should be enough to get them into the playoffs. Antigo beats Ashland 15-0 up north. Antigo now 4-4 overall, 3-3 in the conference. Ashland 1-7 overall, 1-5 in the conference. Colton Tomei was 7 of 12, 133 yards passing for Antigo. Alec Napkavage, 13 rushes, 68 yards and a touchdown. Something we're going to talk about here as we look at these scores. Again, 3 shutouts in the GNC. A lot of defensive struggles, but Antigo, again, I mean, they started the season off with this terrible loss at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, facing a really good Charger team, but have battled back and in all likelihood will be playing in level 1. Yeah,
and making the playoffs, a nice step forward from last year, and more than anything, just a nice step forward overall this year. As they talked about what they did last offseason and getting that belief, and you follow that up with a season where you make the playoffs, and then you take an even bigger jump next year. So good for them for that good win and being playoff eligible. And so it's just great for your program to have a meaningful football game in Week 10.
Lakeland defeats Hayward 20-11. Lakeland wins their 4th straight. They're now 4-4 overall, 4-2 in the conference. Hayward, looking for their 3rd conference win, does not get it. They're 2-4 in the league, 4-4 overall. Noah Bruckner had 30 rushes, 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And again, those Lakeland Thunderbirds missed their second half last 2 years. Again, 0-4 starts both last year and this year. Last year, they won 5 in a row to finish the regular season, and they're 1 win away from doing that yet again.
Yeah, again, playoff eligible. They get a win this week. We'll look at the matchups a little bit later, but all of a sudden they're a 5-4, 5-2 team in conference and kind of have some confidence rolling forward. I will be interested, as I thought about it, as we look at the Ashland score, knowing that both them and Hayward are out next year, and Wausau East and Tomahawk come in. So Lakeland has kind of been a schedule, like their season is based on that schedule, and that schedule will likely get mixed up next year with the realignment. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to that.
And finally on Saturday, Rhinelander edges Merrill 7-0, a big win for the Hodags. That gets them to 3-3 in the conference and a good opportunity to be in the postseason. They're 5-3 overall. Merrill still looking for that first win, 0-8 and 0-6. Callum Wheeler at 24 rushes, 95 yards for the Blue Jays. Merrill had a 167, 135 edge in yards. In fact, I went to this game on Saturday because I can't get enough, I tell you. Just watching the game is a nice day. Went up to Merrill and watched this one. The thing that jumped out for the Merrill Blue Jays is they played really solid football. Again, they've scored 13 points all year. But watching that team, it's not, when you think about that number, it's in your mind, you have a picture of disaster, to be honest with you. I mean, because 2 points a game is just not good enough. But yet they were able to run the ball a little bit. Unfortunately, they didn't have that second option once they moved the football. In fact, one of the most interesting things about the game is Merrill got the ball first. They drove it downfield. It took well over 7 minutes off the clock. They got stopped on downs. Rhinelander got the ball back. They ran more than 10 minutes off the clock and got stopped on down. So we're past the midway point of the second quarter. Each team had the football once. And then Rhinelander scored late in the first half. And then in the second half, the Merrill defense held Rhinelander the 3-and-out 4 of their 5 drives. They had chances. They moved the ball a little bit, but just not able to finish. So again, it's really interesting when we talk about these numbers every week and to get a chance to see these two teams in action. And to see that Merrill, despite their 0-8 record, they played tough defense. They played tough on, I thought, in terms of running the football. They just weren't able to have that little bit of extra, either a big play on the ground or a big play through the air. It's hard to go 12 plays in high school football and score. And I thought that this game, for both sides, in fact, was very indicative of that.
Yeah, and I know how much you love preseason polls or week 1 and week 2 polls, but we're talking about a Rhinelander team that was ranked in the top 10 at one point this year, had some really nice wins to start the year. I mean, they have 5 wins on the season. They'll go for number 6 this week and see. But for Merrill, you got to walk away from that saying, we held them to 7 points. That's a playoff team. We held them to 7 points and had an opportunity early in the game to get on the board and win the game or challenge the rest of the way.
They had opportunities through the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't finish, and that's the biggest thing. It was like they moved the ball, they had first downs, they had more yardage, they held them to 133. I felt for them because I really wanted to see them score because obviously it's not easy, when you get goose-egged so many times. But at the same time, I was actually impressed with what I saw with the Merrill. And again, I think that when you're 0-7, now 0-8, the fact that there was still a lot of life in that team and there was a lot of fight in that team was, I thought, very impressive.
Yeah, I think it speaks to their coaching staff. I think it speaks to how they prepare and what they're doing every day in practice. So Coach Wadzinski's maybe it's hard to get fired up for 0-8, 0-6 coming to practice every day, but at the same time, maybe they are building some momentum heading into the offseason.
We will recap the rest of the week 8 action a little bit later on, but we have to take a break and then come back with our coach guest for this week. We'll be talking to the head football coach of Wausau West High School, Matt Johnson, coming up. This is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back, Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Well, on Friday night, I'll be over at Steam Stadium at DC Everest, live right here on Bull Falls Radio, as we have the Wausau West Warriors and the DC Everest Evergreens, 7-1 West, 6-2 Everest, 6:35 for the pregame, 7 o'clock for the opening kickoff. And to talk about that and everything else, 2023 Wausau West Warriors, very happy to be joined as our coach guest this week, head football coach of Wausau West, Matt Johnson. And Coach, I see plenty of you, but thanks for coming in here on this Wednesday evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And again, 7-1 this season, 5-1 in the conference. Before we go into specifics, obviously you had high expectations coming in. How has the season gone from the point you started practice back around August the 1st up to this point? Has the season gone the way that you expected?
In terms of wins and losses, I never know how it's going to go. We thought we had a good team coming in. We thought we had a lot of talent. Were we expecting to be this record? I don't know. We expected the kids to work hard, and we expected to have a fun time with this group because it's a great group of guys. And from that standpoint, it has been a really good year. They're fun to be with at practice. I don't think anybody ever walks out there dragging their feet going, I don't want to be here. And that's kind of one of our goals in our program is we want our kids to enjoy their time out there. They want them to, when they're done at 3 o'clock, it should be something they look forward to, not, gosh, I wish I could go home today. Right. So has it gone how we've hoped? Yeah, it has, because it's been fun and the kids have enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah, so full disclosure to everyone out there listening, anybody who doesn't know that I am also the athletic director at Wausau West in addition to being former head coach. I want to make sure everyone knows I'm not going to throw any softball questions out here tonight, Coach Johnson. Just to piggyback off what Chad said, like what makes it a special group? Like obviously, I know you guys do a ton of stuff together outside of football, whether it's goofy fundraising stuff for the Booster Club or just extra social type activities, either as a whole group or in small groups. What makes this a special group?
I think it's a unique group of personalities. There's a lot of it. There's interesting personalities, there's fun personalities, there's hardworking kids, there's multi-sport athletes. So you get to have those conversations about, how'd your basketball game go? Or, what are you doing? What are you expected to do? How's baseball going? We got guys that love baseball. We got guys that wrestle. We got all these different groups. We got hockey players in there. So I think just all of those different experiences blending together and all those personalities, and we've got coaches with big personalities as well. And I just think it's, you mix all those together and it just makes for interesting conversation and guys that want to spend a lot of time together.
How has the mentality of the program changed in recent years? Because now the last 3 years have been all really solid seasons for your team, able to share the conference championship the previous 2 years. Unfortunately, one stub toe looks like it's going to kind of cost you this year, but still an outstanding season with only one loss up to this point. How has the mentality of your group changed? Because when you get as old as I am, or maybe not quite as old as you guys are, but I mean, I'm a little bit older, I have all this history involved in it. For these guys, they've been around a lot of winning. Do you get that sense within the program that mentality has changed the last few years?
Yeah, I've been waiting for this question all day because I think the biggest change was the coaching change. I'm just kidding. I've been waiting for that one. No, listen, I think, it's not like we hadn't had success at Wausau West in prior. Coach Grundy did a lot of good things on back. We had success. Not continued success, and we had, we probably had more losing seasons than winning seasons. But as I look back and see kind of what changes, we went with some sophomores back when Colton Garrick, Jack Behrens, Joe Behrens, those guys were sophomores. We went through our lumps. We had a hard time. Those guys made a commitment in the weight room. They were that kind of group. They were kind of that group of leaders that said, this is how you get it done. Like, we've got to be in the weight room. We've got to get in there. And then all of a sudden that next year we had that, a couple wins and could have gone the other way a few times too, as those guys were juniors. And then when they were seniors, they were mature, physical, good football players, and a bunch of them with a bunch of varsity experience. And then all of a sudden they started to win some games, and that belief that they could win, I think, was the big change in the program. They expected to win when they took the field instead of hoping to win. And I think that's a really huge difference in what we're doing now. I think our kids take the field expecting to win, not in an arrogant way, not in a cocky way, but we want to be on the field and we can play with anybody, and we expect to beat them. And that, when you're hoping and wishing, all right, it ain't the same as believing. So I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, kind of jumping on board with that tradition question. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the tradition in you taking the job. I graduated from Wausau West in 1991, and my freshman, sophomore, and junior year at Wausau West, the head football coach was Tom Johnson,
I know that guy.
Yeah, you know that guy. That's your dad. So what did it mean to become the head coach? Obviously, you'd been in the program a long time. It wasn't like you just came to Wausau West. You've been a huge part of what's happened there for 10 plus years. But what did it mean for you? What did it mean for your dad? What are some of the conversations you go? I've had the luxury of standing next to your dad on the sideline on many Friday nights and listening to him to critique your performance as a coach and the team. So what's that like, kind of being part of the family tradition and the Wausau West football tradition?
Yeah, I've been part of the program like all the way back then when my dad was involved, obviously as just a water boy and on the sidelines and as the son of a coach, and watching my mom enjoy it sometimes and not enjoy it other times and have some tough moments and stuff. So I got to see all of that. So as I'm taking the job, it certainly is special to to do the job that your dad did and have those conversations. And it's a different era. We definitely talk about that. It was one thing back in the 80s when he was doing it versus what we're doing now. But to see his excitement and my mom's excitement as well on the sidelines and traveling to Hortonville, and I think my dad gets a little more worked up with the officials than I even do on the sideline. But those are just great conversations. I love the times where we can just go sit down and I drop the kids off at the house or bring my kids over to visit them, and we get in some pretty good conversations about football and about he really likes to. He's like me. He's in it for the kids. He likes to see the kids succeed. He loves talking about them. So it's just really cool conversations that we get to have. And, I've heard for years the stuff about the players that impacted him that he's had over the years, the Jason Fosters and everybody else that he's had over the years. But so it's fun to talk about these kids that have that impact on me as well. And I think that's the biggest connection that we have in it.
Again, we're talking to Matt Johnson, head football coach at Wausau West High School, here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Let's talk about the season up to this point. You started off with 4 wins in a row. I'm going to put halves here, 4 weeks and then 4 weeks, because I think it's been interesting that the first 4 weeks you came out, played some good football. Yeah, won fairly easily, maybe not as consistent week in and week out. Then the last 4 games, you had, I thought, an outstanding performance against Marshfield, probably as good of a road trip as we've seen in a long time. You had a rough game against Stevens Point, and then last week, a great win in a tough environment on homecoming with a big crowd at Hortonville. Could you talk a little bit about the flow of this season? Because it feels like you've been challenged quite a bit the last 4 weeks after maybe as a little bit of an easier go of it in the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever used the word easy or whatever,
that's a media thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we struggled a little bit getting started against Superior up there, and Rapids gave us fits early. So it didn't come easy for us. We stuck that Superior game in there and had just about a I don't want to say perfect or anything, but we had a darn near perfect performance, especially in that first half, and we've put a couple of those together. So we're just trying to work on being consistent week in and week out, and obviously the turnover bug hit us against Spash, and if we could, we'd like to go back and have that one again. But to our kids' credit, you went from a great performance in the first half and all the game against Marshfield to then bouncing back and having a nice week the next week to the Appleton West. And then I think when we finally got to Hortonville, we kind of talked with the kids about, all right, this is playoff football now. Like you blew some teams out, you lost, you did some dumb things, you had some good moments, you had some good luck. Are you willing to get into those games and have a fight? And Hortonville gave us a fight. They are a really good football team, really physical football team. And so I was just really proud of our kids as we turn the corner, as we move into this second half, as you say, and into the playoffs. Are we ready to fight and do what it takes to win playoff games? And we answered it at least for a week. We'll try it again this week.
Yeah, and I think one of the added challenges that you guys have dealt with the last couple of weeks is some injuries. Yeah. Obviously, lost some guys, and we'll see moving forward who we get back, who we don't, that sort of thing. But it's also then gives other guys the opportunities and step up. What has that process been like from a coaching and game planning standpoint? Losing your 26 power guy,
yeah.
That's made all of our lives pretty easy for a long time. So when you have that and then have to use other guys and maybe do some things differently, what's that process been like, and what's been the reward of it?
Yeah, losing our 26 power guys there with Bryce coming down and taking care of the edge for us, and then Ray running it. So it's been hard, losing those two, and Levi Pernsteiner as well, kind of who's the leader on our defense, kind of that quarterback back there taking the signals. those three are obviously huge parts of what we do. Not that you want to lose anyone ever at any time, but those probably were some of them that you'd write down and be like, well, we're going to struggle if we don't. But, credit to the kids like Jackson Elby, Jackson Nago, Jaden Durr, Oliver Wilfley. These are the guys that we've kind of asked to step up and take those spots. And I don't want to say we didn't miss a beat, but they fought. They fought the way we wanted to. And, you said, what's it like in those situations? Well, it's hard because most of those guys were playing a different position or they were already helping us, and then you've got to move them somewhere else, and you got to move a new guy into this one. Against Hortonville, we had some injuries in that game. We lost Jackson for a while then to some cramping in the second half. So we were we didn't have another guy ready to go at that next position. So it's hard. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of coaching. But that's the fun stuff. You're in the huddle reminding kids what their assignments are and what they're doing. And then when they go out there and do it to the level that we did, it's just really fun. It's cool watching those guys get it, and just cool watching them take advantage of their opportunities.
I was driving home from Hortonville after the game last week, and I think that was kind of what struck me. Was one, it was a great high school football game, both ways, clean. My blood pressure went up a little bit with your dad's at the end with some of that last drive and the calls, whatever.
Yep, mine too.
But to think that football is all about the memories we make and our teammates and the games and all that, and to know that the guys we kind of listed and talked about earlier in the game with Jackson and Jaden and Jack and some of these Jackson Albie as well, like those guys now have created their own memories that maybe wouldn't have happened if you still had Ray and were had the opportunity to feed him, or if Bryce was still, and God, we of course want those guys back, but what a neat opportunity for those other guys to create some lifelong memories and know that they played a big role in that victory Friday night.
Yeah, for sure. When you have a good football team, you got some good football players that don't play as much as you'd want them to, and that's tough on those kids. And then when they get those opportunities and they prove that, like you said, you can, they can go back and say, see, I should have been playing there all along or whatever. No, but those kids have had an awesome attitude all year long and helped us on scout. And, we had to move Jackson Elby down to a different position already to get him on the field because we didn't get him out there early enough. And then obviously now he's sliding down to tight end too. So he's a guy that's, him and those other guys, but Jackson especially is a guy that said, I'll do whatever as long as I can stay on the field, coach. That's what I want to play. So those are cool.
And then, sorry, Chad, one more.
It's almost like you never talked to this guy. I tell you.
When you look at that game, and one of the biggest plays to me, offense, defense, we always talk about that and the big plays and all that. The punt that Jackson had in the second half, that I don't know what it is. I'm going to say 60. It probably wasn't that far, but it sure felt like it.
I think it was.
I was going to say it completely flipped the field at a time when we really needed them to have to work to score, and it was just a big turning point. So you throw the ball, you tackle, you do all those things, but a punt played a really big role in that game.
Especially coming after they had their punt that landed in, somehow stopped inside the 1 yard line too. There was so we needed our own there. So thanks, Jax.
And you got to mention as well, I love watching Carter Amerson because he's such a good receiver. And again, I think I've said this maybe to you, maybe to others. You don't see how good he is by the numbers because, obviously you're a good running team. And sometimes you got to run the ball when you run it well. It's obvious. But, boy, he adjusts to the ball. He makes a catch. I remember in Superior on the far sideline was fantastic. He was a great guest for us as well. But, boy, what a terrific option as well when you do need to throw the football. And what a great option for a first-year starting quarterback as well.
Yeah, for sure. Carter is special on both sides of the ball. But I think, I'd be
7 picks now, right?
Exactly. I'd be remiss not to say, too, you mentioned he doesn't get as many opportunities as he wants, but Carter's an unselfish guy. Right. He takes as much pride in the improvement he's had blocking. He had a crack block on Friday night where he knocked a kid down, got up, knocked another one down, and I think Carter talks about that one as much as any catch that he had. So, yeah, he wants the ball more for sure, but we're going to do what it takes to win games, and we're going to try to get it to him when we can. But Carter's an unbelievable kid and very unselfish, and I think his best football is still ahead of him when he gets to the next level.
What a defense as well. I don't remember a defense that has your defensive tackles are almost like the spark plugs. You don't see that very often. Usually they're doing the dirty work in order to clean it, and then your linebackers rack up a lot of tackles. Yeah. But all levels of your defense have been good. You mentioned Carter. He's had a great season in terms of picks. But your defensive tackles, it's really something to see those two that can just blow up plays so very quickly.
Yeah, those two are fun. Those two are interesting. They're definitely kind of the, the attitude of our defense or the character of our defense with DeAndre and Landon up front. But yeah, they make plays. They're hard for anybody to block. They're hard to block individually. They're hard to block one-on-one, and hard for teams to run the football. And it starts there. And with Bryce and Will Mitchell on the outside of that D-line too. So that whole D-line, and now Tegan stepping in there with Bryce being out as well. So I think it starts all up front with those two, but with those four in general. And then, yeah, guys on the back end are just really solid. We have, we have other good cover guys. Brett Butala, returning first-team all-conference kid. Marcus McDonald has come in there and stepped up, and JJ kind of running the show there on the back end a little bit. So, yeah, we're pretty good at all levels, and obviously trying to get better every day and trying to figure out what we can do to stop DC Everest this week.
Yeah, 1 point last week. What does Landon weigh? Was he like?
I think he's about 305, 310 right now.
Yeah, at one point I looked and his helmet was on the ground and his feet were 5 feet 10 inches up in the air like he was breakdancing. I would look, I'm like, what is going on out there right now?
Yeah, I have a screenshot of that one on my phone from when I was watching film and saw Landon upside down. Landon's got a pretty patented move where he rolls through if he jumps and he rolls through. So we've seen that a time or two, and everybody he's a very, very freakishly athletic kid for a 300-pounder, can get down in the splits. He's a fun guy. He's a fun kid that's been dialed in like we've hoped he would be this year. So you get moments like that from him.
And following up on the defense, last week, obviously, they had a great game. We've talked about some individuals. But today we had to submit to the WIAA. Part of the playoff stuff is how many points you've given up in conference games in the first half. And through 6 games, you guys have given up 21 points. So 3.5 points a game. Even when you look at the ridiculousness of the Spash game and all the turnovers, and to think we gave up 7 points.
One of those touchdowns was a defensive touchdown.
Yeah, and gave up the 7 points in the first half of that one. I mean, to talk just overall with the defense, what's gone into this, and from a game planning and a coaching, and it's just been an incredible. Obviously, as a defensive guy, defensive coaches and players never get enough credit. But talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, our defensive staff works very, very hard. I think we're averaging 3.5 points per first half, even if you go into the non-conference games. And like Chad said, one of them was a defensive touchdown that the offense gave to them. So you can't. I mean, if you go into halftime. Whether your offense has gotten going or not, and your defense has been able to hold them to whatever under 7 points every single game this year, you definitely have some confidence that you have a chance in the second half. And some of those have been paired with some good offensive performances, but to have that consistency and that peace of mind as an offensive coach and as offensive players, that hey, if we make a couple mistakes and if we fight through some adversity, the other side of the ball's got your back, and you can pretty much count on it week in and week out. That really makes things, keeps you calm and able to just make the adjustments that you need to, and hopefully get yourselves going a little bit.
Again, talking to Matt Johnson, head football coach at Wausau West here on the Big High School Sports Show. Well, Friday night, big one. It's always, every game's a big one, but this is really a cool game because West and Everest, every year it seems like it has some significance one way or the other. And for this season, boy, both teams having really good seasons. So you're 7-1, 5-1. They're 6-2, 4-2. And those 2 losses, they had the football in the opponent's territory late in both those games, having chances to win. Obviously, going over there Friday night with the added issues of maybe the elements being involved as well. What are you expecting against Everest on Friday?
I'm expecting what we had this past Friday, really, against Hortonville. Again, Everest has a very good defense, putting up very good numbers back there. They can really step back and chuck the ball. We're really impressed with their quarterback, Logan, and their target, who is actually the cousin of Marcus McDonald Pearson. So had a lot of good talks about that this week. But they've got good football players sprinkled all across that team. And, last year, week 9, we kind of took care of business against them. And I feel like, we just keep telling our kids, like, this is not that. This is not that. This is a different Everest. This is the Everest that we expected then and that we expect all the time. They're a heck of a football team. They're really well coached, so we expect, their game with Hortonville went right down to the wire, like you mentioned, Chad. It was the same type of game. Fortunately, we won by 1 score. They lost by a couple points with a chance to tie it. So we don't expect anything less than that. The elements should make things interesting, and I want to say make things fun, but I'm not sure I'm really being honest with the fun thing. It's going to make me wet for sure, if nothing else. But, we're really looking forward to it. West Everest is a pretty special matchup. Especially in the last couple years since we've won a few of them. So
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to jump on with that one too. Is you've played at Wausau West. Your dad was involved back in the day, and shoot, when I played, however many years before that, before you did, they weren't really games. Like it was. I think my senior year, we felt really good about how we were coming into the season. We went over there and lost 39-0. Certainly could have been worse, like most games like that. But so. What has the transition? What has brought us to this point? Like from Everest dominance and West kind of maybe not being there to these games are battles for the last 12 years since I've been back in town. Quite honestly, other than last year, there really hasn't been, and it makes me a little nervous because I would imagine they've talked a lot about this game for the last 364 days.
Yeah, I think it's a rivalry game because we're close in proximity for sure. But until we started beating them, until we started having a chance every time we went out there, it wasn't a real rivalry. I mean, it was in proximity, but they dominated us. So as soon as we kind of broke through there, we made some improvements. We've beaten them, like I said, the last couple of years. I think now it really feels like a rivalry. Now we got them, and now they're kind of digging in. Where instead of us just trying to climb that hill, now it's a battle, and both of us believe that we're going to come out and win on Friday night, and that makes for a pretty special Friday night and a pretty special high school football game.
And then once the clock gets to zeros on Friday night, you turn your attention to the postseason. I know you're focused completely right now on Everest, but at the same time, in the steps forward for this program, last season you got that good win against Rapids in level 1 and then went over to Bayport. Do you feel like this group has that potential to take the experiences maybe of last season, a couple of playoff games against really good competition, win one, then came up short in one, to be able to be ready to give their best coming up in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I do. I think experience is something that can't be replicated, and we've been there, and we just we've been talking all year. We didn't necessarily set the goal to win conference championship. We didn't necessarily set a goal. Our goal is to win, go 1-0 every week, but always in the back of our mind it is how can we get better to win playoff football games. And playoff football teams, don't make dumb mistakes. Right? They come ready to play every night. You don't have to, something good to happen before you're playing to your best ability, and you're just willing to fight longer than the other guy. And I think I don't know if those are the keys to winning games, and certainly having good players helps that too, and we've got those.
Right.
But yeah, I think these kids believe that they can go into the playoffs and make some noise, and that's the goal, and that's what we're going to keep working towards this week.
Obviously, I know that you're 100% dialed into DC Everest this week, but I also know who you are, and I know that you know what the playoff field is likely going to be and what that region. So I'm not going to ask you where you think you're going to end up, because obviously there's a lot of football to play in 2 days before you get to that point. But what does it mean? Because that grouping is going to be probably some teams that we will face next year, being in the new football realigned conferences, as well as some familiar foes from the eastern half of the state who've kind of shown a lot of dominance in football over the last. So like, what is that opportunity, or how does that drive and motivate you as the head coach, but also the rest of the coaching staff and the team to kind of be able to come out against those teams and maybe prove that this football in this neck of the woods is kind of back on track and heading in the right direction?
Yeah. I think we as all of coaches in Central Wisconsin want to prove that. I know Coach Trelo talks about that a lot as well. We want to work to make this area better and be able to compete with the Fox Cities and then to some extent the Big Rivers and then the teams down in the Milwaukee area where certainly deserve what they get in all their rankings and their wins, because they win it. So having the you can't prove that unless you have the opportunity. So what does it give us? Hopefully it gives us the opportunity to go over there and just play the best football. We had that shot with Bayport last year and thought we really competed well with Bayport. Just they're a good football team. You make one or two mistakes, and all of a sudden goes from a 7-point game to a 21-point game, and you have no time left on the clock, and you haven't seen the ball for a month. So it gives us another opportunity. That was it last year, and I thought our kids walked away, from that going, we can play with these guys. We can compete with them, and that guy was good, and that guy was awesome. But hey, we're okay too, and then hopefully it just shows, the younger kids in our program too, like, hey, these guys worked this hard and they got this far. We need to take it up a notch. We need to work harder. We need all of us. We need this whole program to continue to move in that direction. So, yeah, like I said, gives us opportunity. Hopefully we get a good one.
Hey, it's a great time of year. Great game matchup on Friday. And then, of course, great matchups after that. Look forward to seeing you at Everest on Friday, and look forward to seeing you in the playoffs. Thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Good luck Friday night.
Thank you.
Matt Johnson, head football coach of Wausau West. We're going to take a break, come back with more here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks again to Wausau West head football coach Matt Johnson for joining us. Coming up in about a little more than 10 minutes, we'll have our student athlete guests, DC Everest Volleyball's Lindsay Truitt and Newman Catholic's Paige Gould. They'll talk about tomorrow's special Volley for Our Neighbors match and also their teams and their seasons coming up at 7:05. But continuing to recap last week's high school football action, Merriwood Conference, battle of unbeatens, but it was all Edgar as Edgar knocked off Auburndale 41-0. So Edgar's 6-0 in the conference. They're 7-1 overall. Auburndale now 7-1 overall as well, 5-1 in the conference. Carter Butt, another big night for Edgar. 12 rushes, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches, 43 yards. Colby Weisenberger, 8 rushes, 131 yards, and 2 scores. And Edgar is a team. 40 rushes, 423 yards. This Edgar team looks like it's getting better and better every week, doesn't it?
Yeah, to rush for 423 yards against a 7-0 football team, that's quite an accomplishment. And I think it just speaks to where Edgar is in that conference this year and likely where they're going to be come playoff time and the run that they're potentially going to make.
Marathon earns a big win. They're now 3-3 in the conference, 4-4 overall, beating Pittsville 33-22 last week. Pittsville 4-4 overall, 2-4 in the conference. Cooper Huxama threw for 144 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. True Thurs, 19 rushes, 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dalton Dar had 22 rushes, 125 yards, and a touchdown for Pittsville. But Marathon intercepted 5 Pittsville passes. And real quickly, we talked about Medford throwing 6 picks and Pittsville 5. This time of year, when it does get a little cooler, last week there was some rain in the area, all of a sudden, ball security becomes more and more important, doesn't it?
Yeah, we talk about it each week when, as we get past week 5 and go on, what is the recipe for success down the road as far as winning conferences and winning games in the playoffs? And it comes down to defense and your ability to run the ball. So if you rely on throwing the ball that many times, if you're going to give the opponent the opportunity to pick it off 4, 5, 6 times, it's going to make it a lot more difficult. And obviously having the lead and ball control plays a huge role, and having to chuck it definitely makes it a much bigger challenge to win those football games, especially late, especially this time of year.
Colby beats Abbotsford 49-14 last week. Colby 7-1, 5-1 in the conference. Abbey 5-3, 3-3 in the league. It was tight for a while. 14-7 Colby at halftime, 21-14 in the third quarter. But then Colby outscored Abbey in the last quarter and a half, 28-0. Gavin Voss, another big night for Colby. 21 rushes, 150 yards, 4 touchdowns. Abbotsford, who usually rushes for about 400 yards, held to 167 yards rushing as a team. Colby, despite the loss to Edgar a few weeks ago, still, I saw them a week ago, looked very solid. This is a team that still has, I think, potential to make a decent playoff run.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that one is, we know their offense is really good and they're going to score a lot of points, but holding a really good rushing team that's been good all year to 14 points and 167 yards, I think that will serve them well moving forward.
CWC Large, Stratford went to Waiwega Fremont. I knew it was a big game for Waiwega, but boy, Stratford came in and spoiled it. 56-0. Tigers 7-1 overall, 6-0 in the conference. Waiwega Fremont's lost 2 straight to drop to 6-2 overall, 4-2 in the conference. Jack Tubbs only threw 10 passes, but gained 150 yards and a touchdown, 198 yards passing, 175 yards rushing, and 2 defensive touchdowns as well for Stratford. And the defense held Waiwega Fremont to 111 yards. Obviously, Waiwega's had a good year, but they ran into another team that looks like it's rounding into form late in the season.
Yeah, and kind of like we talked about about Abbotsford and Colby, same thing. Waiwega Fremont's been putting up a lot of yards and a lot of points coming into these last couple of weeks, and I think it definitely speaks to who Stratford is and how good their defense and what that's going to mean for them as they try to repeat as state champs this year.
Other games in the CWC Large last week, Wittenberg-Burnhamwood moves to 7-1 overall, 5-1 in the conference, shutting down Shiocton 46-0. It was Amherst continuing to play well coming down the stretch. They beat Nakusa 39-8, excuse me. Amherst now 5-3 overall, 4-2 in the conference. And Spencer Columbus wins their second straight game. They beat Manawa 13-10. So the Dons are 2-6 overall, 2-4 in the conference. I should say the Rockets. It's Spencer Rockets and Dons of Columbus, but they're still the Rockets. And Manawa 2-6, 1-5. We have to take a quick break. We'll come back, recap the rest of the action from last week, look ahead to this week coming up as well in the next hour. But coming up next, it will be our student athlete guest from DC Everest, Lindsay Truitt, and Newman Catholic's Paige Gould, talking about volleyball. That's coming up as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls. And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, and time now for our student athlete guest for this week. And tonight we're going to focus on volleyball. We have a pair of student athletes from DC Everest Senior High School, Lindsay Truitt, and from Newman Catholic High School, Paige Gould. And first of all, ladies, thank you both for coming on by here tonight.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. We're here to talk a little bit both about your seasons up to this point and the success you've had on the court, but also talk about a special evening tomorrow night. It is Volley for Our Neighbors. Volley for Our Neighbors match between the Evergreens and the Cardinals at DC Everest Senior High School. And it's a benefit. All the proceeds from the match will be going to the neighbor's place. In fact, normally you have to get tickets through GoFan, but DC Everest instead is asking for cash donations at the gate of at least $2, and all proceeds will be going to support the neighbor's place, including concession stand sales, raffle baskets, and T-shirts. And I guess, first of all, ladies, talk a little bit about the match, and because you're going into the playoffs starting next week, end of the regular season, but to finish off your regular season with something that is more than just a volleyball match has to be something pretty special.
I think it'll be a pretty good game. I know Newman's excited to play us, but I also know that Everest is also excited to play.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun because this event hasn't been going on for a long time, or, well, either of us are in high school. Like, the last time was, 2019, and I remember always watching it middle in school and elementary school, and it was super fun, and both teams have been working hard all season long, and now, obviously, we're coming to the end of the season, and both teams are really good and ready to play.
And one of the things that I've noticed when I've gone to volleyball matches is that there is a great energy always in the gym. It just feels like both in terms of the players between the lines and also the crowd that comes out, there's always an energy. I imagine that it even adds a little bit more to have this kind of event to what's already a pretty energetic feel. Yeah,
our student section, it's usually the main part of our game. Sometimes they get rowdy, but it's also very entertaining, and
Yeah.
It helps us a lot.
DC Everest will have a bigger studio than ours, but the atmosphere, even the motivation from the other student section, it's just the energy and the whole atmosphere as a whole that gets everyone going and the energy on the court.
Yeah, so a lot of good tradition for both of your volleyball programs over the years, state championships and nice deep playoff runs. Kind of talking a little bit about this season, Marshfield's just been awesome the last 2+ years, especially in conference, but just overall. And Everest all year long has kind of been the clear-cut number 2, Marshfield beats everybody, and then nobody else has been able to beat you guys. So last Saturday, when you guys had that win over Marshfield, the team that hasn't been beat, what was that like? It was a shock. I don't think anybody. I read it on Saturday night as the athletic director at Wausau West. I was like, you got to be kidding me! Holy cow! Marshfield's so good. So what was that like? What a great win for you guys.
We went into that game knowing it was going to be a good game, and we all tried so hard to win because people were not very confident Everest was going to take us, because when we played Marshfield the Thursday before, 2 Thursdays before, we got swept by them, so it was an upset game, but we went into that game knowing that it was going to be a run for their money for sure. And
probably gives you a lot of confidence now moving forward into the playoffs?
For sure, because like I said, Marshfield was very cocky in that aspect, and they were we're going to win again. But we took it again, so.
That's awesome. And Newman, I was at the Wausau West Newman matchup earlier in the year, and obviously a trademark of Newman volleyball is how fundamentally sound you guys are. I think we were definitely taller, and we and we certainly didn't come over there thinking that we were going to beat Newman, because you guys have all that tradition. But the one thing I left the gym that night thinking is how few mistakes you guys make at Newman. You're so well coached, you play your positions very well. The ball just never hits the ground on your side. I mean, you guys aren't, and maybe this has changed a little bit over the year, but you guys weren't killing the ball. There wasn't all these dynamic hits and kills, but you just never make mistakes. Is that kind of your trademark? Is that kind of what you guys pride yourselves on?
Yeah, a lot Betty likes to focus on, our coach, is specifically in practice, practice how you'll play. In practice, we're always focusing on the shots, because obviously we're not a talented, height, gifted team. So always trying to find the open spots, being creative, super gritty, and super just focused while we're playing.
I know our coach at West is new this year, but knows Betty very well, and that's the one thing that she says is how incredible she is at game planning and finding the other team's weakness and then defending their strengths, and it was definitely obvious that night.
Again, we're talking to Lindsay Truitt from DC Everest Senior High School and Paige Gould from Newman Catholic High School. Again, tomorrow night, Newman will take on DC Everest over at the DC Everest Fieldhouse in the special event, Volley for Our Neighbors match. Evergreens and the Cardinals getting together with all the proceeds of the event going to the neighbor's place. And Lindsay, Jason was just saying to Paige about how Newman Catholic is not a team that overpowers. And then I was watching some of the highlights of your match last night against Wisconsin Rapids, a match that Everest won in straight sets and gets at least a share of the conference championship. Your game has a little more power to it. How would you describe your play? Are you the one that basically goes for those kills and sparks up front?
A lot of our team is mentality. Like, we just have to come together. We're a really talented team. Like, we all have the skills, but it's just the mental aspect of it. So we just have to work together to be able to push through it.
And Jason mentioned the fact that you beat Marshfield on the weekend. And then coming to last night, obviously you knew what the impact was of the match, that you needed to win to make sure that you would get at least a share of the conference championship with Marshfield. What was the feeling going into that one with the momentum, that knowing that you had a chance to do something very special in front of your home crowd last night?
We were still so ecstatic from Marshfield's game. Like, we were all, like, screaming on, like, Monday's practice and Tuesdays. But, like, when we go into that game, we were just excited to really just secure that win because we knew that that was really the make or break it if we were going to keep the title.
And Paige, looking at your results this season, Newman has faced Wisconsin Valley Conference foes not just once but multiple times, against West and against East, against Merrill. They got Everest coming up tomorrow night. How is that going to help you and your team when the playoffs do get underway next week? As you mentioned to me beforehand, you're a number 2 seed in your bracket. Do you feel like the non-conference portion, along with the Merrillwood South portion of your schedule, gets you prepared for a deep playoff run?
Yeah, I feel like this year more than any other years when we've got to play those different teams like DC Everest, West, East, and they're all really good teams, really talented teams, and have just helped us so much come together as a team and overcome and be able to win and find different ways to win. And yeah, it's been fun. How
much of a bit of juice do you get when you're facing these crosstown rivals? As you know, being the small school, as he said, you go over to DC Everest, know that they got a lot more kids within the school and are able to have these big crowds. But being maybe the for lack of a better term, the little brother down the street, to get an opportunity to take on these bigger schools, does it add to the juice for you and your teammates?
Yeah, it's been so fun. Like all summer, once we found out we were playing West the first game, we were so hype about it, like knowing we'd never get to the opportunity to play them. Like we only have 14 girls total on our team, knowing they come from such a big school, but like getting that win gives us so much motivation because we can be small, but like if we really work hard and put in the focus we need to our practices, we can win the big matches versus the bigger schools.
And Lindsay, when you go to the playoffs, you said it, you got confidence now after beating Marshfield. Other than a team like Marshfield, who are the other teams that you know of in your bracket that maybe are the top contenders within your bracket, the teams that you may have to cross coming up in the next week or two?
Memorial for sure, and Chippewa Falls is the ones up there. And again, Marshfield. Marshfield is going to be seeded higher than us just because of their record, but we'll be ready to play them again.
You don't sound very happy about that.
You don't know which way it'll go, but hopefully in our favor. For
you
sure.
sound like you have an edge for Marshfield.
Yeah.
Is that the sense? Is there an edge when you play Marshfield? Is that within your group that you've been striving to get to this point? Has that been sort of that carrot for your entire team?
Yeah, like I said, we just have to come together. We all need to be one when we play them. And when we played them on Saturday, we really showed that we all came together and played as a team.
So one of the nice things about it, like Newman, you guys already know it's your playoffs because you guys start on Tuesday. The seeding for Division I is tonight, so you guys will find out. So the game on Thursday will be awesome, and it'll be a battle from a volleyball standpoint. 2 really good programs. Both teams are coming to win. What, in addition to that, like stepping away from the volleyball piece for just a minute, what does the volley for our neighbors, what does that mean to you guys as players? Like the ability to kind of show that citizenship and to be able to give back to the community. Like tell me what that process is like and how that's going to make you feel being part of something that's really good for our community overall.
Yeah, I think that Neighbors Place is a great nonprofit organization that we can play for, and we're drawing so many people there to come help and support. And with that many people over there, we're trying to at least get $1,000 donation, I think, this year. But I think we can definitely beat that with all the people coming out to watch some good volleyball tomorrow.
I also agree. Tomorrow we're having like raffle baskets, and we're playing like games after the our match, and like like you said, that's how you get into the game tomorrow's donation. And last year we brought a massive check to the neighbor's place, and it felt really good for us in the community just to help that place. So.
We like to step outside the sport and ask each of our student-athlete guests a few questions outside. Obviously, you're both involved heavily here in athletics and volleyball. What do you like to do outside of sports? Maybe when you're away from school, when you're away from your sports, when you want to maybe take a step away, chill a little bit. First, Lindsay, and then Paige. What do you like to do outside of sports?
Besides volleyball, it's just hanging out with family and friends. Living up my senior year, it's the last year to see all of them before I go off to college, so just spending time with them and my family. So.
Paige?
Yeah, I agree. Family, friends, senior year, going to the football games on a Friday night, having fun weekends. Yeah, basically just hanging out with my friends.
So being seniors and talking about college or life after high school, what are your plans? What are you looking forward to, both academically or athletically, or what is your plan?
I'm going to go into sports medicine and be in a D3 school closer to home and probably college ball somewhere. So
I want to go further away from home. I have a lot of family in Florida area, so I've been looking at schools down there, like Tampa or University of Florida. But yeah, that's always been my dream, to like go somewhere down south. And I think I want to go into physical therapy.
And Paige, do you hope to play sports at the next level? I know you also play softball. Are you hoping to be able to stay involved in sports?
I think I'll stay involved, maybe do some intramurals, but not play at the next level for college.
And Lindsay, you're hoping to continue playing volleyball at the next level, correct?
Yep.
And you feel confident about that next step?
Yep, for sure.
That's outstanding. And I guess finally, what we ask always of our student-athlete guests is as well, based on what you've learned over the years involved in your sports, if you're able to talk to a younger teammate who's just starting their journey within the volleyball programs of either DC Everest or Newman Catholic, maybe a piece of advice that you would give them, what you've learned over the years, what would that be? We'll start with Paige and then Lindsay.
I would say since freshman year to now my senior year, just enjoy it, have fun, give that drive and 100% effort every single day in practice, and just really enjoy the time with your team because it's going to go by really fast.
My sophomore year, I was nervous going into it because these all bigger girls have been on varsity for the last 3-4 years. But I learned that it's not scary to be taken under someone else's wing because, like, the bigger girls took me underneath their wing, so now I just have to take them underneath their wing. So just don't be scared and have fun.
And finally, I guess I have to ask, because both your teams have done very well this season. I think both teams have hopes of making deep runs in the postseason as you continue and basically get to the point of ending your high school athletic volleyball careers. Do you allow yourself to dream in terms of being at the Rest Center, of making it to the state tournament here as you start this playoff run? Do you allow yourself to do that, or are you sort of in the moment?
A little bit of both, but like obviously Newman has had a lot of success in the past of state championships, going to state, and I haven't had that experience yet my whole high school career, but I think this year we put a lot of work in this season. I'm really hoping we do get there.
And Lindsay, of course, you do have a number of we call powerhouses that are probably in your way, but do you allow yourself to that ultimate goal of making it to a state tournament?
It's going to be hard, but I do think we are able to do it as a team and individually. I think we can do it.
And anything else, Jason?
For both of you, that's obviously what's great about the playoffs is you only have to beat them on that night. You don't have to sweep them during the year. You just have to be ready to go that night. Congratulations to both of you on great seasons, and I think what you're doing tomorrow night is awesome in both from a volleyball standpoint, but more importantly, I love that it's Newman and Everest and there's East and West here. So when you do something like this, it really serves the entire community from the far northern parts of the Wausau community all the way to Weston and Rothschild and Cronenweder over there. So it's a great thing you're doing, and thank you for being part of it, and good luck in the playoffs.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Again, just to recap, tomorrow night, make sure you get over to DC Everest Senior High School, as it will be the Volley for Our Neighbors match between DC Everest and Newman Catholic. The JV at 5:30 and the varsity at 7 o'clock. And again, normally you'd be asked to purchase tickets online, but in this case, over at DC Everest, just asking for cash donations at the gate. At least $2, whatever you can give, and all proceeds from the event will go to support the Neighbor's Place, including concession stand sales, raffle baskets, T-shirts, and a whole bunch more. A lot of fun, and 2 outstanding teams as well to be on the court over at DC Everest Cardinals and the Evergreens tomorrow night. So get on over there at 7 o'clock. We're going to take a break, come back with more. I'm Chad Holmes with Jason Foster. It is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, and it was great to have the ladies in tonight. We have not had the opportunity to focus on volleyball at all during the course of the fall, and it's always great to be able to talk about a special event like this, and it really is cool. And it's also very cool because both teams are doing so very well.
Yeah, it is, and very historic programs and interesting matchup. I'll actually be interested to see how that one goes, and to know they already have their playoff seeds set, so they don't have to worry about winning. I mean, they obviously will. They'll compete, and both teams want to win, but to be able to also focus a little bit more on what they're doing with their charity work and giving back to the community, I think it's a great thing, and both young ladies did a great job.
And the thing about Everest with that big win against Marshfield, obviously, you can just almost feel the confidence from Lindsay after that. going now into the postseason. And with Newman, I was looking at their results this season. They beat West.
Yeah.
They beat West twice, I think, actually, if I'm not mistaken. And they beat East, and they beat Stevens Point. I mean, the teams that they're going to face in their bracket, I don't think have played Division I competition. I think it's going to be definitely a big advantage for Newman Catholic, as they know the way to Green Bay. We'll say that much.
Yeah, and kind of like I said in talking with them, they're scrappy. Like, they do not have the big hitters. They do not, but they are consistent. They don't make it. It's almost
fundamentally sound.
It's almost unnerving when you play them because they don't make service errors.
Right.
They don't make the ball comes back over the net every time, and they force you to beat them. And that style of play is successful. So it'll be interesting to see how far that can take them.
So, again, thanks to those young ladies. And, again, if you miss any of that interview or miss any of this show, you'll be able to go to our website, bullfallsradio.com, click on sports. You'll be able to listen to this tonight's broadcast or any of the other broadcasts by going there. And you can also get the Big High School Sports Show wherever you get your podcast as well. We have not finished up yet quite in terms of week number 8 of the high school football season. We went through the the Valley Football Association, the Great Northern Conference, the Merriwood, and the CWC Large. CWC Small last week, Iola Scandinavia. Again, they have been outstanding so far this season when they're playing their conference opponents. They had a couple of losses in the crossovers, but they've more than made up for it in the league itself. They are now 5-3 overall, 4-2 in conference after beating Pacelli 57-14 last week. Pacelli 2-6 overall, 2-4 in the conference, but still with an opportunity with a win this week to earn a spot in the playoffs. Carrillo Capizia. I have not seen this name all season long from Iola, but he had himself a big night last week. 24 rushes, 199 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He does that again. I promise you I will get that name correct coming up next week. And Eli Bierencott, he's been the big tackle machine for the Pacelli Cardinals. He had 15 tackles in that game. But Iola, they've made deep runs in the playoffs in the past. They had a bit of a down year a year ago, but Scott Erickson, the coach, has done a great job there over the years. I would not want to play Iola Scandinavia in the postseason.
No, and kind of like we talked about with Newman Volleyball a second ago, they are battle-tested. They definitely play some really nice teams and really competitive football games early in the season, and you cannot underestimate or underscore enough how good of a coach they have and the amount of experience he has over there. So huge when it comes to game planning and it comes to winning playoff football games. That is definitely an advantage.
Until a little more than a week ago, Loyal had not won a game all season. They're going to the playoffs. They're now 2-6 overall, 3-3 in the conference. How can they be 3-3 in the conference, 2-6 overall? Well, Wild Rose forfeited their season. So Loyal, the week they were supposed to play Wild Rose, they got a non-conference opponent. They lost the game. I don't know exactly how you're supposed to make these records up, but I just basically say what you did on the field is your overall record, then you have your conference record. So Loyal, 500 in the conference, 2-6 overall, beating Rochelt 44-0. So Loyal heading to the postseason. And Assumption now 2-6 overall, 2-4 in the conference. They got a forfeit win last week over Wild Rose, so they got a makeup game, and they faced Aurora Central Catholic. And if I'm not mistaken, that's an Illinois team, because I know Aurora's in Illinois. I assume it's not Aurora, Colorado, making the trek over to take on Assumption on Saturday. But 35-14 Aurora Central Catholic over Assumption. It was 14-14 at halftime, and then Aurora Central Catholic outscored the Royals 21-0 in the second half. Manny Schultz had a big night for Assumption, 24 rushes, 174 yards. And the thing about it is I don't know how Assumption only scored 14 points because they had 64 rushes in the game for 364 yards, but only 14 points.
Bend, don't break by the Aurora Central Catholics.
8-player, Newman Catholic, working their way into potentially a playoff spot. The Cardinals have a chance, if they win this week, to try to get into the playoffs. We don't know. We have to wait and see for the announcement Saturday. But Newman is now 4-3, 3-1 in conference after shutting out Wild Rose 50-0. Wild Rose 3-4. 2-2 as they moved into the slot of Boulder Gresham in the 8-player Central Conference. It was 43-0 Cards at halftime. Tyler Ackerman, 17 rushes, 169 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4-4 passing, 79 yards and a touchdown. Ackerman went over the 1,000-yard mark in season rushing yards on Friday. And I was talking to one of the coaches over there today and I said I was surprised that they won 50-0 over Wild Rose, who'd won 3 games. And he said, yeah, we were 2, but we just played really well. That's 2 weeks in a row where they have just played really good football. And it looks like this team is starting to come together, and they have a chance. They're going to be a bubble team. I mean, the expectation, I think, is they're going to win on Friday, but they'll be a bubble team. It'd be very interesting to see them get into the playoffs just based on pedigree because, it is not the same team. What they have done this season has been outstanding, but at the same time, whoever they would face would be one of probably the top teams in 8-player because 16 teams. Newman is starting to, I think, make some noise.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see where they go. Like, I think if maybe them being able to face somebody they haven't seen already in one of those top seeds could make a big difference. But you look at their stats from week to week, the last couple of weeks, they seem to be becoming more and more efficient each week. They be continuing to rack up the yards and cutting down on their mistakes and their turnovers.
Also in the Central, Almond Bancroft stays undefeated in the conference. They're 4-0 in league, 6-1 overall. Port Edwards gave them a battle, but in the end, Almond beat Port 46-33. Port Edwards, another team that could be a bubble team. They're now 4-3 overall, 2-2 in the conference. Brendan Beck had a big night for Port, 27 rushes, 289 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Tri-County earned their first win of the season. They beat Marion Tigerton in the Central 52-36. Some huge numbers for Tri-County. Giovanni Mata, 34 rushes, 292 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But then another back, Aiden Brewer, 16 rushes, 179 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Tri-County, 510 yards on 62 attempts. You get 510 yards in a game, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they'll probably do well Friday night too in the rain. They can run the ball.
Well, Newman's going to try to stop that. CWC East, Gilman, number 1 ranked team for entertainment purposes only rankings. They're 7-0, 4-0 in the conference. They actually had their toughest game of the season. They beat Thorpe 30-8. Thorpe is a good football team, 5-2 overall, 3-1 in the conference. Troy Dulman, 21 rushes, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns for Gilman. Denzel Sutton, 18 rushes, 133 yards for Thorpe. Gilman is a team that did so well in 11-player, but the numbers just didn't add up. They've moved to 8-player, and the thing about it is good coaching will go a long way. I think that Gilman's going to be very, very dangerous in the 8-player playoffs. Coach Rosemeyer's got a lot of experience.
Yeah, he does. The Rosemeyer brothers, great coaches, both of them. Obviously, we've talked about Coach Micklig over the years and their success, and it's one thing to go from 11-man to 8-man and just start playing 8-man football with 11-man coaching style. It's a whole nother thing to coach 8-man football the way it should be played. And we know Coach Micklig does a great job of that. It would not surprise me if Coach Rosemeyer does the exact same thing.
And Withy will also be, I think, a team to keep an eye on in the postseason in 8-player. They've had a lot of success as well. Terry Lobby, longtime coach, took Owen Withy to Madison more than once, and they are 5-2, 3-1 after beating Alma Center Lincoln 49-6. And Athens moves to 4-3 on the season, 2-2 in conference after beating Greenwood 50-6. Evan Pacell had 11 rushes, 246 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's a gaudy 23 yards or so a carry for the Athens Blue Jays. So again, Athens 4-3, hoping for some miracle, I think, to get to 5-3 and get into that postseason as well. So again, one thing that's interesting is for the 8-player, where there are going to be multiple teams that are 5-3 that won't get the playoffs. You're going to see 3-6 teams, maybe even worse. You never know, because you got a 2-6 Loyal team. If they lose this week, they're 2-7. They're still going to the playoffs. Yeah. Again, we've talked about this before. It's going to be very interesting to see those brackets on Saturday.
Yeah, and then how those matchups add up. Because some of those teams are probably going to end up getting a playoff win at the same time when those conferences kind of match up against each other in the playoffs. So yeah, it is an interesting time in this transition with more 8-man teams keeping the same structure for 11-man. So it'll definitely create a conversation, I think, down the road and moving forward.
We got to take a time out. Then we're going to come back and look at week number 9. Conference championships on the line. Playoff appearances on the line. And we'll also look ahead to Saturday. What are we going to look for when the brackets do come out on Saturday? So we'll talk about that coming up on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bow Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bowfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Time to look ahead. The final week of the regular season, the final week for some of the teams. Obviously, the teams want to continue into the postseason playoffs, but some of these teams will see their seasons come to an end this week. And some of these games, please note that there have been some games that have been changed from Friday to Thursday. So, again, if you're planning on going to see a game this weekend, make sure that the game has not been moved and the date and time is what you expect. But Valley Football Association, we talked plenty about this earlier with Coach Matt Johnson of the Warriors, but Wausau West at DC Everest, Friday night, 6:35 airtime right here on Bow Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bowfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. I'd like to say, if you want somebody that knows what they're talking about, tune into me.
I agree.
But Warriors in the Evergreens, as we've talked about, 7-1 Wausau West, 5-1 in the conference. DC Everest 6-2 overall, 4-2 in the conference. Both teams battling some injuries. I mean, it's significant injuries on both sides. And also significance for this game. It's not for the conference championship, but it could be for a home game for both these sides. Is correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it with Coach Johnson a little bit earlier. It's a tough bracket, the region, and we pull those teams in, the best teams from the Big Rivers and the best teams from the FVA, and it's tough. So I think last year West was 8-1, and they were a 4 seed, and a 7-2 team went on the road week 1. So it's a tough matchup. Yeah, 8. I would say the only way to guarantee, and I use that word loosely, a home game is probably to be 8-1.
So for Wausau West, big one on Friday. When you look at the matchup, defensively, both teams have been solid defensively this season. I think Wausau West has been more than solid. They've been outstanding, starting with their defensive front. DC Everest has played a lot of close football games. I mean, they have been in pressure situations quite a bit this season, so they've seen pretty much everything at this point. And plus, again, we have to mention that the elements could be a major factor in this game as well. How do you see the matchup between these teams?
I think you kind of hit it on the head. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be a defensive battle, and with the weather, I think turnovers could play a huge role in this one in determining the outcome. I would say both teams are probably going to try to run the football, and whoever holds on to it probably has the best chance of winning.
Appleton West at Stevens Point, and you have to give Stevens Point a lot of credit because I don't think many people saw them winning this conference. And the thing about it is, going into the season, I think the favorites may have been West and maybe Hortonville. Stevens Point went on the road. They beat Hortonville early. They went on the road, beat Wausau West later. A well-earned, assuming they take care of business against a struggling Appleton West team on Friday. We have no reason to think otherwise, but really a surprising season and a really nice bounce-back season for the new coaching staff for Stevens Point after a real rough go of it in year 1.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think Coach came from a smaller school and with a much smaller staff, and as he admitted or talked about when he was on the show, part of it was trusting the staff and delegating some of those responsibilities that he's always done himself. And I think it's extremely obvious that they've done things very well. And I think that offensively, they've really put it together. I think that's probably their biggest area of growth. That is a completely different style of football that they're playing at Spash when you look historically, and it probably took them a year to kind of get the athletes comfortable in executing it and getting the staff to completely buy into what they were doing. And that was the thing I noticed in the West game, was that they were very efficient offensively, and their kids understood what they were doing, and they were confident, and they can do both. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball, and that doesn't mean every other play. That means we can pound the ball down the field and score a rushing touchdown on this one, and the next one we can come out chucking it and we can score both ways. So you combine that with a good defense, and they had a great season and definitely are a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. And I look forward to some of those matchups, kind of like I do with West, with those teams from the East and the West, to see where we match up.
Wisconsin Rapids at Tom Field on Friday night, taking on the Wausau East Lumberjacks. Wisconsin Rapids got that first win last week. East has a couple of wins on the season. An opportunity. Again, neither of these teams are going to the playoffs. I think obviously Wisconsin Rapids has high expectations because of the success that Tony Biolo's had. But they also knew going into the season when you lose Leo Brostowicz and you lose Teo Lucas, your quarterback, they lost all their skill position players. They lost all the offensive production. They knew there'd be some growing pains. The defense was good. They gave them chances to win a lot of games, but just not able to win a last-second game against DC Everest. Lose 6-0 against Marshfield. I mean, again, they're close to the playoffs. For East, really, I think a solid season. I mean, going into it, obviously not playing varsity football in the Valley Football Association for the previous couple of years, there were a lot of question marks. And I think they passed a lot of the questions and answered them in a very affirmative way this season.
It's kind of interesting having East and Appleton West in the conference in the position they're both in right now, because I think Appleton West is where East was 2 years ago, and probably tough decision time for them as far as what they're able to do moving forward. And I think when we talked a little earlier about Appleton West and their ability to compete, I think East not only did they compete, they won football games this year. And this matchup's kind of intriguing to me. East has done some nice things offensively, not so much in the recent weeks, but I think Rapids, if they have one thing, it's a really solid defense. So if East can find a way to get their offense rolling, I mean, 2 touchdowns is probably going to win this football game. And Rapids didn't exactly tear it up against Appleton West offense. Their offense has gotten better, but they're still not, I wouldn't say good. So this could be a good one. I give Rapids the nod defensively in this one, and East potentially the nod offensively. So it could be an interesting matchup.
And I think another interesting game is Hortonville at Marshfield. Marshfield, again, it's been a rough go of it, but they've still got the 3 conference wins. Again, when I talk about the 3 and 4 teams, I'm saying, hey, they're going to make the playoffs. Well, not all of them are. I mean, there's going to a great majority because of the way that nowadays to get the number of teams that make the postseason, most of them will. So not all of them. Marshfield, I think, again, if they lose, they're 3 and 6. You don't want to go into the postseason 3 and 6. They're playing at home. I think they've had some rough goes of it at home recently. I mean, last week against Bash didn't score a point. I think the last home game before that was West when they didn't score a point. Hortonville will try to bounce back. That's a good Hortonville team, and they're in Division 2, like Marshfield. So, again, they could be in the same bracket. Who knows? I mean, it's an interesting matchup.
It's interesting to me, and even if you look at the Spash game last week, and I'd have to look more closely. I did not do that.
Well,
but
what
it was
are you
21.
doing then,
it was
I tell
it
ya?
was 21-0 at halftime,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, and that was also the final score. So I would be willing to bet that Spash didn't completely take their foot off the gas in the
Not at
second
that
half.
point, no.
Right, exactly. So I think Marshfield, that's a respectful score against a powerful Spash offense. And the other thing, it was a great football game last week. It was absolutely a defensive battle. But I would say the other thing that stuck out in my mind is you take away a breakdown by the West defense on a 3rd and long screenplay, and then a couple plays later, a nice cutback run by a running back. I mean, Hortonville could have very easily been shut out in that game, and their offense is not great. Marshfield's defense playing strong. 1 or 2 scores is going to win this football game, I think. So it could be interesting.
Great Northern Conference, a game that's been moved to tomorrow. Mosinee will try to complete the conference championship, hosting Merrill. Also in the GNC, Medford is at Antigo. Medford is second place after that loss to Mosinee. Antigo got their 3rd conference win, puts them in a good position. Lakeland is at Rhinelander. Can the T-Birds make it 5 in a row to wrap up the regular season? Hodags looking for a 6th win overall after getting a win 7-0 at Merrill last week. And then a game that does have playoff implications as Hayward will be home against Ashland. And Hayward looking for a 3rd win that would likely get them in the postseason playoffs. But
I mean, to think that 6 of those 8 teams could make the playoffs is kind of, I mean, really, if Hayward wins, Merrill and Ashland are the only ones on the outside looking in. That's crazy.
And the thing about that as well is when the brackets come out often, those teams are in the same Division 2 bracket. And it turns into a mini Great Northern Conference tournament. But we'll have to wait and see if that occurs. Merrillwood Conference. Colby is at Auburndale. That's an interesting game because last season in week number 9, Colby was undefeated, trying to secure the conference championship. Auburndale went to Colby and won the game. So it was Auburndale, Edgar, and Colby that tied for the championship. I'm sure Colby remembers that. And Auburndale, coming off a rough one against Edgar last week, their first loss of the season, you don't want to get rolled 2 weeks in a row going into the playoffs, do you?
No, and two good potentially playoff teams here. I mean, Auburndale's does a lot of things good on offense. Colby's good on both sides of the ball, and I think it kind of a little reminiscent of the DC Everest Wausau West matchup where West rolled Everest last year but was not indicative of who Everest was, and I would say Colby's probably had this one circled for a while.
Also, Edgar at Marathon Friday. The kickoff has been moved up 1 hour till 6 p.m. Boy, Edgar is tough in any circumstance. I would think that playing on a slick field would actually play into the hands of a team like Edgar because Marathon likes to actually throw it a little bit as well.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about Marathon in this game is that they are on the inside of the playoff bracket at this point. Right. So they have something to play for. Probably not going to get a win here, but I think if they were not playoff potentially eligible, that this one could get out of hand quickly.
And the third game in the Merriwood, Pittsville at Abbotsford. And the thing about this one is interesting. Pittsville, after a very good start, is now 4-4, 2-4 in the conference. Abbotsford 3-3 in the conference, 5-3 overall. If Pittsville wins this game, theoretically, all 6 of the Merriwood teams could be in the playoffs.
That is another one of those, kind of like the GNC. And this is probably one of my favorite matchups of the week, having watched these teams throughout the year. Success early, success late, good running games, nice athletes, took their lumps against the really good teams. So this is probably going to be a heck of a football game.
CWC Large, Wittenberg-Burnhamwood looking for an 8th win on the season at Weyauwega-Fremont. Weyauwega was 6-0 2 weeks ago. They ran into Amherst where they gave up a lot of points, and they gave up a lot of points against Stratford. Again, the schedule has so much to do with how you kind of look at things. Yeah. And if, Whitburn has been really good. It's a tough matchup for Weyauwega. They theoretically, if Whitburn plays the way they've been playing and Weyauwega plays the way they've been playing, you'd be 6-3, but feel pretty lousy going into the playoffs if you're Weyauwega-Fremont, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and Weyauwega-Fremont's probably looking at it, I would say, barring a huge upset tomorrow night. Weyauwega-Fremont probably looks at it and says, 6-3 is a nice step forward for this program after the last few years. So maybe some moral victories there, but or a springboard into the offseason and maybe taking that next step next year.
And Whitburn, I think it'll be a very interesting team as the playoffs get underway. They've been really solid this year. Even the game against Stratford, the Stratford team's been blowing teams out recently. Whitburn played with them over in Stratford. So, again, this Whitburn team, I think they had the state semifinal run a couple of years ago. This team looks to be one that could do it again.
And they're big and strong up front and have a heck of an athlete at quarterback. So, yeah, they got a lot of potential.
Spencer Columbus at Stratford. The games have been moved to Thursday at 6 o'clock. Spencer Columbus, 2 wins in a row. They win against Stratford, they could be They could make the playoffs. Not going to be easy going to Tiger Stadium.
Probably not counting any chickens in that one before they hatch.
And Stratford's been playing better as well. I mean, it's interesting to see teams like Edgar and Stratford that are such perennial powers, and they're rounding into form. They've got coaching staffs that know what it takes to make deep runs, and it looks like these teams are playing their best football going into the final weeks of the regular season and then into the postseason.
Yeah, how awesome would it be if we could see a Stratford-Edgar Week 8 or Week 9 game here as they've both gone through their seasons and gotten better. They had the kind of the blowout early, but it'd be great to see what that matchup would look like again.
Well, unfortunately, they're not in the same divisions and not in the same conference anymore.
Right.
So it's like
got to play that one early,
I
week
guess
1
so.
or 2. Yeah,
exactly. And then other CWC large games have Manawa at Amherst. Amherst is already heading to the playoffs. Nakusa is at Shiocton, a couple of schools that are not going to the playoffs. CWC small. Interesting game tomorrow at Gerke Field. Pacelli hosting Loyal. Loyal, again, they have their 3 conference wins. In all likelihood, that's enough. Pacelli has 2 conference wins. Pacelli has a chance to get a 3rd conference win at home. Again, Pacelli's been a solid football program in recent years, but they have to win to have any chance tomorrow night.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this couple weeks ago, the turning point with those 2 wins and the 2 losses. It basically made everybody potentially playoff eligible, where it looked like for a while maybe only one team would make it out of this conference.
And Assumption is in pretty good shape as well. They go to Rochelle, who's winless. But I tell you, again, you look at a lot of these teams where you kind of scratch your head. I mean, nothing against these teams, but boy, making the playoffs, again, it just makes me wonder, at some point we got to have to take another look at this. So either put them all in or have to tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think in some of these divisions, I think that there's not going to be a lot of level 1 games that are going to be too exciting. I think and it's kind of tough too when you look at the Edgars of the world and the Stratfords, and how through many of their games during the season, their stars don't, or their best players don't get to play in the second half. Well, that might continue into round 1, maybe round 2 as well.
In Iowa, Scandinavia, they have the Wild Rose forfeit, so they travel to Kingdom Prep Lutheran for their regular season finale. 8-player Newman Catholic at Tri-County. Again, for the Cards, they have to win this one, get the 5-3, and then, again, I kind of studied it, and I was talking to folks. It looks like they're a bubble team. I mean, and again, the fact that they lost everything. I mean, it's been a really impressive regular season for Newman, and an opportunity to again make the playoffs if they're able to finish off with a win on the road.
And I do know that from past, ever since we've gone to the computer rankings, I know that there is definitely part of that formula that includes recent playoff success. Well, obviously that is a huge in favor of the Cardinals in that regard.
In other 8-player games to wrap up the regular season, Marion Tigerton at Almond Bancroft. Almond Bancroft with a win would secure the Central Conference Championship, and Port Edwards trying to get their 5th win and put themselves perhaps in the mix for one of those final playoff berths. I think it's going to be difficult for them as they lost to Newman, and that obviously will be a factor for the 5-win teams, but they will host Wild Rose. And then CWC East, Gilman will try to complete a perfect regular season at Athens. Athens needs a win to get the 5 wins and perhaps put themselves in a position to be in the discussion. Owen Whitney is at Thorpe, a couple of 5-win teams facing off in a good matchup to wrap up the regular season, and Alma Center Lincoln is at Greenwood. We got a little more than 2 minutes to go as we go into Saturday. I mean, when you've been around, in terms of waiting to see those brackets come out. I liked it when it was like at 2 a.m. I always enjoyed that, actually, after a Friday night football, to stay up and get it. But now it's going to be a TV show at 10 a.m. on Saturday. In fact, here in Wausau, you can see it on Channel 9 this year. But what are you looking for as when the brackets come out? Anything in particular?
Yeah, I think part of it is that every once in a while the WIA throws us for a loop from a Division I standpoint. When I think a couple of years ago when Rapids was the conference champ, I know and we had multiple conference champs in that same. They try to break up the conference champs a little bit. Rapids was far enough south that they were able to bump them down. Part of me wonders, do they consider doing that with a Spash, who's a conference champ? Although I don't know. I mean, Hudson will potentially come in as a conference champ. Bayport has the potential to come in as a conference champ. So I would be surprised to see them put all 3 of those in there. So in addition to the actual matchups, I'm kind of intrigued to see, sometimes they bump Kimberly up or down. Kimberly having a loss last year kind of impacts that, but kind of to see where these, and then also kind of where Edgar lands this year, knowing that Regis is probably not as strong as they've been in the past. So it'll be interesting to see what their path to Madison might look like.
And I'm always curious if it does land where you see a lot of matchups between conference teams. I've never been a fan of that in Level 1, but I've seen it in the past in Division 2 where you see basically 4 of the GNC teams going up against each other. In this case, it could be 6 of the GNC teams. They could put them all together in a bracket, and I'm not a big fan of that. Also with the CWC Small and the Merrillwood as well. Hopefully, again, even last year, that was a tough game for Wausau West to play Rapids in the first round, where they were tri-champions. Again, I'm assuming now with the computers, it just is what it is. Yeah. But at the same time, you always like to have that opportunity to play somebody you haven't played before.
Yeah, and it was interesting last year, too. They definitely gave, for whatever reason, I don't know the formula exactly, but Chippewa Falls and Hudson definitely with worse records kind of got a better seeding than the Wisconsin Valley Conference, the VFA schools.
And they both ended up losing to Appleton North.
I was going to say, and neither one of them fared very well in that regard. And those Fox Valley teams kind of like that. They kind of like 2 years ago when Nina came over here, a 6-3 team who lost to 3 outstanding teams over there, 4th place finisher, and come over, and they're as good as anybody in our conference.
Well, we'll have some brackets to talk about next week. So enjoy a rainy Friday night, and we'll be back next week.
Great football weather. Looking forward to it.